Welcome everybody back to another edition of the Tech Woke Podcast. I'm your host, Chris. In today's podcast, we have a great guest. I've been trying to get him on for a long time. Been seeing him on various platforms. He's been in cybersecurity and tech for over 20 years. He's worked for the DoD. He's started his own company. He's an engineer. He's been doing his thing with Stratus Cyber. And without further ado, we're going to introduce Ajay. Welcome to the podcast, and thank you for coming on.
Awesome. Yeah, Chris, thanks for having me. Great to be here and chat a little bit more about cybersecurity, RMF, FedRAMP, CMMC.
Yeah, so hey, I'm glad to have you on. I'm definitely going to pick your brain, and hey, whatever knowledge you have to give, make sure you give it all to them. And if the audience, if you're paying attention, just make sure you take notes about what's going on, because there's going to be a lot of valuable information. And AJ just doesn't go on a lot of podcasts and stuff, so he does a lot of content and things. But hey, this is a one-on-one. So AJ, you've been in cyber. You've been an engineer. You've been in the government space. You've kind of been all over the place. Just so the audience can kind of know, like, can you explain how did you even get into cybersecurity in general, and how did you stumble into FedRAMP and CMMC? And I see that you made that your dominant source. I mean, on the engineering side.
For sure. A little bit of background on me that will kind of help lay the groundwork. But yes, spent about 10 years up at NSA doing all sorts of intel signals, and also cyber stuff there was already happening. So after my time there, spent about a couple years as a defense contractor, just writing heuristic analytics for cybersecurity. So kind of just wandered into the cyberspace. Undergrad degree in electrical engineering, and then ended up getting my master's in cybersecurity as well. So kind of just happened naturally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then since starting Stratus Cyber in 2016, I actually spent a few years doing 853 assessments RMF at a federal agency. See a lot of spreadsheets, controls, and then after that, a lot of hands-on pen testing, so internal, external network pen testing, application pen testing, which we still do a lot of today, and kind of just wandered into the FedRAMP spaces. Some people were looking for help in supporting vulnerability management for FedRAMP, so kind of just happened. And then here we are today. We're all in on FedRAMP and CMMC work.
Yeah, because FedRAMP, CMMC stuff, NIST, all that stuff can make you lose your hair. It's like we both know that. Like, but I understand that you just fell into it, and there's a need, and it's still an ongoing need because it's a lot of documentation, spreadsheets. You created software. Your company creates softwares to help manage that stuff. Did people think you was insane to focus on that type of stuff?
Maybe in hindsight, but now where we're at today, I think it's starting to pay off. Like we're a small team of engineers, and we love building, running enterprise cloud environments. And because it's FedRAMP is complex, it's constantly evolving, with cloud and AI and all of the 20x requirements and KSIs, that's what keeps us employed, and it keeps things fresh and exciting and challenging, to say the least.
Now, trust me, I understand that it can be challenging. It's very tedious, but hey, you're supporting the mission, you're supporting the government, and you're doing a great job at it. I did want to ask for myself and for the audience. A lot of people working for as a career in cybersecurity, it can be a little insane to be like, okay, I want to start my own company. Like, can you kind of break down some of the process of that? Even for myself, I started RMF Academy, and like I was telling you, it's like it gets crazy because you have to commit, schedule time, cater to the customer. What made you get into it? How did you do it? And and how did you get customers in general? If you want to go into that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a lot more complex than just thinking about FedRAMP and spreadsheets and things like that. Actually building and growing a company. I think, like you had mentioned earlier, like it's about consistency, and you're just building, every single interaction you have with people, every single post, working towards a single goal and kind of building your personal brand. So, I started off as a subcontractor, federal agency. And then, I think, posting on LinkedIn, just going to events, talking to people, you never know what opportunity lands where. And kind of even taking those, what at the time would be side hustles and then you also have to be kind of careful of what you are, taking on too. Is it lining up with your long-term goal? You don't want to go down a side hustle that might take away from your main goals. So it
Mm-hmm.
kind of just evolved over time, slowly, 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 it's, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you might pick up another small subcontract here or there. But over time, got to be patient. And until you kind of find your niche of what you're good at, and also thinking about how do you build the systems around you to allow you to hire. Subcontracting yourself out is one thing, but then how do you turn that into an offering? Not just consulting, but for us, managed services and a product. How do you go from you can't clone yourself. You got to keep thinking about how do you enable others and help them grow, and how do you give them, parts of your project that you can scale over time. So that's some things to think about, but kind of patience and consistency is the main thing.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. Like, so like when you first, like for myself, when I first got into entrepreneurship, when I started the podcast, it was just me. But then I slowly bring in people to help. But I'm like, okay, well, you can't give them the mind and vision I have to coordinate a podcast to how I would do it. So I got to figure out a way I can give them little things so I can build them up to that, so they can build to mine. And then, like you said, being consistent and going to networking events. I met so many people on LinkedIn myself, just like yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
a lot of people. So LinkedIn, I like how you said that LinkedIn is actually helpful. A lot of people don't use it as a useful tool.
Yeah, it takes time, and it's not just, hey, you're just posting, random things like you do. You're posting valuable insights around, RMF, how do you get into the market, but then also capitalizing on those interactions, like getting people on a podcast. You're building your brand, you're building your network, and then eventually that grows into could grow into more and more.
Yeah, trust me, I got some things coming next year or this year, and it's just because of just building the network and them seeing me be consistent. So they like, okay, well, I'm gonna just give this person a chance. So yeah, that's some good
Exactly.
game. So we're gonna slowly start getting to the cyber, but I did have some questions for you. Like
Yep.
throughout your career, you have done great things. Pen testing, engineering. You built soft, man. You've done a lot of things. Have a family. What is some things that can help you person? Like what are some of the skills that helped you in your career to be good at cyber and to maintain the career and have the illustrious career of over 20 years that you had? What would you give that advice? Because I see so many people I talk to online and they think you just get into cyber and that's it. It's a whole different. You have to have certain skills to get you to the next level.
I would say a kind of curiosity, and then just like the engineering fundamentals. So especially with, you know, hot thing right now, AI. AI can help extrapolate out a lot of what you do, but you can also use it to learn a lot. So, really understanding, the fundamentals of just kind of systems thinking. How do systems work together, whether it's networks or whether it's cloud APIs or, things like that, but kind of understanding, how complex systems really work together to, achieve outcomes, business outcomes, security, things like that. So I think bottom line is just kind of curiosity and keep experimenting. Like, don't be afraid to hop on a CLI or, use AI and, use it to learn. Don't extrapolate out thinking to AI, use it to enhance your capabilities and enhance how you learn.
Yeah, I agree. I was unemployed for a little bit. And I first started interviewing. I've been in this space for a while, so I haven't really practiced interviewing. So it's like you forget about some of the basics. So as I was interviewing, I was like, okay, I got to go back to where I do at my job. You got to break down what the system is, explain what implementation is, just understand how system works, and use AI to your advantage. Another thing I told a lot of people is like use AI to help you talk to AI. Tell AI to ask you a question. You talk to it back. Tell it to grade you so you can better explain these processes, especially if you're about to do an interview. So I agree. Use it to enhance yourself. Don't rely on it because you can't. It's
Yeah.
still kind of dumb. It's a little dumb. A little dumb yet.
Yeah.
So so I understand. Like that's some great advice. Like just use that and just be consistent and make sure you understand how systems work. That's the main thing. If you can't explain it as a cybersecurity specialist, then what's the point of having it sometimes? That's our job to break it down to people, right?
Yeah, you want to understand how identity works with networking, which works with, cloud architectures, containers. Like maybe you're not super hands-on or, deploying all of these things, but being able to understand them. And actually doing some hands-on work too. Like, don't be shy of, "Hey, let's go deploy some containers or let's go mess around with some cloud APIs." Like, so what if things break? Like you'll learn it, there's so many lab environments out there. Like,
Yeah, I agree. Cause like even with me, you was talking. I think it was some months back. We was talking about GRC engineering, and that's the new future, and that's what I'm
mhm.
working towards too. So I can eventually get into the technical implementation of things. So definitely make sure you get into it, break it and mess up. There's nothing wrong with messing up. As long as you tried. At least I give it to you. At least you tried.
Yeah, that's how you learn. I mean, that's
So
also one thing I kind of going back to entrepreneurship, not necessarily hiring for technical skills you can teach somebody, but the curiosity, the accountability, the willingness to learn, that those are tough things to teach.
most definitely. So AJ, we're gonna get into some of the FedRAMP things. Just so we're asking for the audience, like with risk management and FedRAMP compliance, a lot of the times people think it's the same, but it has some aspects of it. But can you kind of break down to the audience what's the difference between maybe NIST framework and FedRAMP, just so the audience can understand that?
Yeah, so RMF, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is really kind of the process of going through like the authorization.
Yeah.
It's really about going through how do you do all of that categorization, monitoring, controls review. Whereas, FedRAMP does incorporate aspects of RMF, like, how do you go through the whole process, but the FedRAMP is really a specific set of requirements that kind of fall under the umbrella of a RMF process. And then FedRAMP is also defining the specific baseline, specific parameters, and now with 20x specific, KSIs and rules that you have to follow. So yeah, RMS really about an overarching process, and FedRAMP is really a implementation of that.
Yeah, and it's mainly like implementation to cloud
Exactly.
network.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
mainly.
Specifically, yeah, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS services. Yeah, mostly
Yeah,
SaaS. Yep. Mostly
yeah,
cloud. It's all cloud providers, selling their solutions to the federal government.
yeah, basically. And it's like, and then what I've been studying up on and making sure I'm aware is like with that, you got to make sure you have certain SRGs to make sure that you're compliant to the proper, was it CUIs or whatever what's that called, cleared level that is a part of, and making sure that you're prepared, like depending on what the cloud system inherited, make sure you're taking care of your portion, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much terminology out there. There's CMMC and protecting CUI, and then there's the DoD and, their whole processes, and then your CRM, your actually SRM, your shared responsibility matrix. So, what does your AWS Azure provider take care of? What's your responsibility? So there's, so many acronyms and terminology that yeah, understanding them and then understanding how they all work together as a system is hard.
So as an engineer, I did want to kind of tap on this because I know you actually implement these things. Like, are you when you're doing this, like, what is the process? Do you have to make sure everything is working correctly, or how are you implementing? Like, what is the kind of the process in that also? Like, just out of curiosity.
So kind of a couple different flavors there. So, SaaS vendors, we work with them to help them get ready for FedRAMP or kind of prepare for the process. A lot of that is also engineering. Like, how do you build out your cloud environment to make sure it's secure? All of the networking, all of the security hardening, like your STIG baselines, kind of boundary protection, container image scanning, vulnerability management. So it's really about not just the technologies, but also the processes. How do you do vuln management, change management, incident response? There's, really a lot of, it kind of boils down to a few key processes that you should be doing well as on a day-to-day basis.
No, I understand. So I get it. Okay, so it's a lot going on with FedRAMP. We can talk about that for probably 2-3 hours. But I but I
Problem.
but I did have a question. For like there's a in this current cybersecurity space, we do understand there's a lot of private sector companies that's coming into the government. We have a lot of AI systems that's coming. Can you explain why the government is trying to expedite the process by doing a lot of FedRAMP authorizations currently? What are you
Yeah,
seeing on your end?
absolutely. So, FedRAMP is releasing 20X. So we were part of their 20X moderate pilot. And kind of the overall goal there is, there's so many products out there. The pace of solutions coming out to meet needs, business needs, both commercial and even for the government. There's so many products out there and only a few hundred on the FedRAMP marketplace available for agencies to use. The whole concept of 20X and the modernization of FedRAMP is to secure federal data is kind of paramount. And that's through the FedRAMP program. But how do you make that process faster so that agencies can stay on top of cutting edge technology, use kind of the latest and greatest services without FedRAMP being a huge kind of roadblock or kind of slowing down the process. So yeah, 20X and kind of all of the new consolidated rules are coming out soon. So that's really going to kind of pave the way for CSPs, cloud service providers, to provide their solutions quickly to the federal government and also agencies to procure them faster. So that's kind of why the demand for engineers, assessors, and CSPs, kind of getting more excited about FedRAMP upcoming is happening.
Yeah, because they're trying to make it so fast. They have a lot of these GRC engineers, and I know you've seen it. And GRC engineering is the future,
Yeah.
and that's why they're trying to make it fast.
Oh yeah. Not just for, and I've been advocating this too. Yeah, GRC engineering and FedRAMP 20X and the key security indicators. It's all GRC engineering. Because the system that we got through the authorization process, it was a self-authorizing solution. So we have pipelines built that are tracking key metrics across the whole cloud service provider. So S3 bucket encryption, all users having MFA, but these are live pipelines that are querying the cloud daily and reporting back metrics of, passes and failures of a full baseline. So that is, it's GRC engineering. We're getting data every day about the environment, and things that fail, get tracked as tickets for remediation.
Okay, that sounds good. Hey, and we're gonna get into that
Yeah,
But I did want to ask, can you explain it? Even for myself, the 20X process. What is that? Like, can you kind of go a little bit into what the 20X
yeah,
process is?
for sure. So your traditional kind of FedRAMP process, Rev 5, and probably what you're used to at federal agencies is, here's your list of 853 controls. Here's all the requirements. Tell us how you're meeting them. Let's take some screenshots, kind of prove you're meeting them. We'll do, your full set of controls year one and kind of a subset of controls every subsequent year. Kind of manual evidence collection, screenshots, these humongous SSPs and policies and procedures. Whereas, kind of the reality of it is, technology moves much faster than those point in
Yeah.
time audits, processes, documentation, you know, lags behind.
Mhm.
You can't really, then especially with, AI, the pace of vulnerabilities being exploited and found and actual security, is just going faster and faster. So, your point in time compliance security reviews are not going to cut it. So like you said, GRC engineering is the future. How do you maintain that and track that security live or, near real time? That's really what FedRAMP 20X is about. There's a set of key security indicators, which are exactly what it sounds like. Here's specific metrics, specific indicators that you need to track, around say monitoring, auditing, and logging, identity, incident response, things like that, like these themes of indicators that need to be tracked continuously. So that's the model that 20X is moving towards, and it's really a flavor of GRC engineering.
Okay, so it's more of like maybe a continuous process that just tracks
Yeah,
certain things, and once it goes below, then it get alerts. Is that kind of what it
to a
is?
degree, yeah, to a degree. Just having mature and automated and machine-based processes for tracking the security of your environment, and also being able to present that data to your agencies so that they can see how you're doing from a security perspective. Things like vulnerability management, probably one of the biggest ones, are you meeting all your vulnerabilities on time? And are you kind of categorizing them appropriately? And are
Yeah,
you able to generate that data continuously, not just, once a month or once a year, but
yeah, I like that. That's where we're going, and I like that we're going that direction because even with me working in the space, it's like okay, we create an SSP. How often are we updating the SSP? How long are we implement? Are we actually implementing what's on the SSP? Are we actually doing patches?
yeah,
So that's a good way to kind of continuously check that process, and I'm a fan of it. I just want to see how how this process goes for continuous. How would this go in the future? But I can't wait to see how we're going to get this. I hope we get it
yeah.
right at some point.
It's a constant evolution. By the time your SSP gets updated, like a new process, a new technology rolls out, a new way to do something, and then you're 6 months later, you're like, oh, our SSP is outdated because technology is just moving faster and faster.
Yeah. So AJ, this kind of get me curious now because it's like, okay, you've done how many? You probably done so many FedRAMP authorizations. I don't know if you can even count it at this time, or you just. But
We've done a lot of audits, yeah.
yeah. So what is something that you can say? Okay, well, I keep seeing companies make this same mistake during the audit process. What are some things that you think companies need to be aware of in that process?
I think some of the biggest mistakes are kind of underestimating the level of effort or level of complexity needed. What is there's so many nuanced requirements, from engineering to ongoing processes, so underestimating the initial implementation effort, but then also underestimating how mature their ongoing processes need to be, like vulnerability management, incident response, yeah, you just user onboarding, offboarding, a lot of the basics, like, to do them right and to do them well is not easy. So, really focusing on the engineering and process basics is hard. It's not just a technology problem, it's a, yeah, people and process problem, which I'm sure you you see that's nothing new. That's a constant problem.
Yeah, like let me give an example for me. It's like sometimes I'm working with a company. I'm telling them about something about 2 years before it even happened. Hey, we got to do this. We got to do this. We got to do this. And then it's like for me, I can see like certain people that's in that position is like, okay, we're gonna put it off. But when it is a problem, then we got to get it done within 2 days.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it. And I've been working in space not as long as you. I know you've seen it so many times, probably numb to it at this point, but
That's just the
but
way it is. Yeah.
so from your perspective, what is continuous monitoring, or how do you continuously check all these processes through the FedRAMP? What is your definition of continuous monitoring for the future for this process for FedRAMP? How would you do it?
So currently, with the traditional kind of Rev 5 processes that say, you're creating these Kanban packages every month. That's kind of the bulk of what continuous monitoring is your vulnerability management program. Yeah, there's a lot more requirements to continuous monitoring, but for us, kind of the bulk of it is your vulnerability management. So making sure all of your scans are running, your vulnerability scans, your compliance scans, your web application scans, container image scans, making sure you have them fully operational, fully authenticated, full asset coverage. And then you're also tracking the full life cycle of your vulnerabilities. And are you remediating them on time within the appropriate timeframes? Your 30, 90, 180 for, high, moderate, and lows, and actually being able to prove that you're remediating them on time. And then another challenging thing is, tracking deviations. You can't remediate every single vulnerability, but are you tracking those that you can't, as, risk accepted, their operational requirements, false positives, and actually tracking all of that. So that's kind of the vulnerability management side of Kanban. And then there's, your usual things like access reviews, public content reviews, doing your actual security assessment, pen tests, which are part of Kanban and, happen less frequently. And that's kind of your traditional continuous monitoring. With 20X, that's just moving to a continuous pattern. So you're keeping those machine generated KSIs, those pipelines up and running, and taking a lot of those manual processes and automating them via some sort of data pipeline.
Yeah, make sure audience you paying attention to that, because that's the main thing when it comes to this, and especially if you're trying to get into space, you got to make sure that those are some of the issues that we're dealing with, and just tracking that and what we're trying to do it right now. So yeah, AJ, and we talked about this. We talked about FedRAMP. I didn't really talk too much about CMMC, but does FedRAMP and CMMC, are they in the same boat right now, or are they kind of separate?
They are two both pretty hot topics right now. CMMC really is about protecting your controlled unclassified information, CUI. So CMMC certifications or authorizations are typically for your kind of government DoD contractors that are holding or might hold CUI. So these are organizations that are small mom and pop shops that might hold CUI to large contractors. So people are kind of scrambling with kind of the November 10th new phase rollout of CMMC. And FedRAMP is kind of revamping itself with 20X. So they're different but related, but also both happening at the same time. And with CMMC, there's additional nuance with if you're using a SaaS product to store CUI, then it has to be FedRAMP Moderate equivalent, which is different than FedRAMP authorized or certified. So there's just so many different, so much happening right now that it's hard to keep on top of it. And that's kind of why we focus on, hey, we're doing FedRAMP and CMMC exclusively. We're going to develop our knowledge and stay ahead of the game on these two areas because it's impossible to spread yourself too thin or to not spread yourself too thin.
Now I understand. Even with me in business, a lot of people ask me about podcasting. A lot of people ask me about this. I say I'm going to focus on Tech Woke and RMF Academy. Sometimes there's a Bruce Lee a quote I always use. It was something about he was kicking something, and eventually he became you can do different types of kicks, but you can be a master at one type of kick. So there's nothing wrong with just specializing in one certain thing, because being an authority in something, you always have work.
Yep, so. Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to take away, everyone has limited time and resources. So you know, as you think about building a company or even yourself, like, what are you focusing on? You should have a broad, general base of things you need to know, but here's your specialties. It allows you to master it, like you said.
So we're gonna go a little bit into it, a little bit more. So throughout when we talking about CMMC, we're talking about FedRAMP. Through me, when I've been unemployed, I was unemployed for a little bit. I noticed that a lot of companies are asking about CMMC. I've done a little bit of CMMC, and again, CMMC is a tough one, because you got to make sure you're good, because if you fail one thing, it's gonna cost you a lot of money. They're asking about CMMC. They're asking about FedRAMP. They're asking even about AI also. How do you feel about do you think this is going to create more opportunities for newer people, or is going to be more for people that are already experienced, or do you think there's opportunities being created? And tell me about it.
I think it's both. There's just so much disruption happening all at once, that there's opportunities for new, curious, hungry people to take advantage of. And then, those that might think that, hey, I'm experienced, I've been in the industry for 20 years. That doesn't mean that you're going to be as impactful as someone that's, learning at a much faster pace and keeping up with the time. So I actually think there might be more opportunities for people to crack into the industry that are really leaning in heavily and, using AI and understanding compliance and GRC engineering as well. Like you can't just rest on your laurels or say, hey, I have 30 years of experience, like I'm good. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah, especially in the government space, even in the private sector moves so fast. So you have to be, they're already doing the stuff. In the government, it's like when you're introducing something new, it can be a little different. What cloud skills or skills, because I know you hire people, you help hire people. What are some skills that you're looking for people that's trying to get into the GRC engineering route, or they want to learn about cloud? Like, what certs should they have? What skills should they have? Tell the audience.
I think, the first types of skills are kind of not technical skills. Like it's, hey, are you willing to go out there, learn, make mistakes, try things? Like, when you say you'll do something, you'll do it. But, when you're really looking at breaking into the field, like the kind of foundational certs are probably important, like just like a AWS foundations, like something technical, hands-on, or a Azure cert where you're actually, doing stuff. I know there's like the GRC engineering club, which AJ Young and Ethan Troy are on. So, they have their own certification kind of helping people do GRC engineering. So it's really just, having a broad understanding of cloud and infrastructure as code, or understanding APIs, containers, being able to understand how all of those systems work together and doing some stuff hands-on, not just talking about it, in general.
Now I understand. Even with me, I do interviews, and they always ask me, like, I can talk about a lot of stuff, but they actually, can you actually do the stuff? And I'm like, listen, give me the opportunity, you give me the accesses, I'll gladly do it. If you don't give me the accesses, I don't know, because that means you don't want me to do it. But I'll do it. I'll scan. I'll scan. I'll implement it. Just give me that one opportunity. I'll do it.
Yeah, that's where there's a lot of lab environments out there, lots of lab focused trainings that are, really helpful, that kind of low risk, Yeah, employers aren't going to be like, hey, come into our production environments and start messing around. But have you done it, at least have you done it in a lab environment? Do you have some hands-on certifications that not aren't like your multiple choice question certifications, but these are you've done some stuff by hand certifications.
So from hiring, they're more looking for more hands-on stuff currently, and that's what's kind of going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And that's I'm talking about how I typically like to interview and hire, which I'm assuming a lot of others are in a similar boat when you're talking about GRC engineering and the future of RMF and stuff. So that's kind of what I look for, and I think that's the general direction a lot of people are going to.
Yeah, make sure the audience y'all listening, because he's telling you what he's looking for. He's telling what a lot of people look for. He's not lying. A lot of people are looking for you to do stuff, or at least show that you can do it, or speak to it from you doing it. So just make sure you're paying attention. You're trying to get into space. The space is not longer you getting your security plus, which is good, but you got to actually understand, like, what are you doing? So that's kind of where the market is now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
do you? Okay, sorry. Go ahead,
I
AJ.
would say, because I mean, like AI can now regurgitate answers to all of your security plus questions. Like,
No,
yeah,
it can.
yeah,
It can. Or there's sometimes, you don't know if they're actually getting these certifications now. A lot of, and I'm not going to go into that too much, but
yeah,
you know what I'm trying to say.
yep,
So AJ, we talked about FedRAMP. Do you think FedRAMP will reduce the manual compliance work? I know we kind of talked about it, but it's kind of a straight up answer. Is it going to
yeah.
reduce it? Yep.
It is going to reduce the manual compliance work, but it's going to shift a lot of that work to engineering. Like, people that are maintaining, building the data pipelines to prove security and compliance and actually track it. So, you're not you might be reducing the overall amount of work, with, because documentation is, long and tedious to do. But you're not eliminating all of the work. A lot of it's just going to go straight to swapping out some of that level of effort with engineering, building, running pipelines, tracking findings, and actually actioning them too. And then actually focusing on the processes that happen after that. Like, it's also one thing to have a really good data pipeline, but what happens with that data? What happens with configuration findings that fail? Who's fixing them? How quickly are they getting fixed? So yeah, that's also, not just a data technology problem, but then it's also a systems, people, and processes problem.
Understood. I did want to ask you some concepts that I was looking into. I was looking into your profile and things. Can you break down some of these concepts, and if not all of them, but just a couple of them?
Yeah,
OSCAL, compliance as a code, and infrastructure as a code. Can
yeah,
you kind of break this down to me a little bit so the audience can understand?
yeah. So, well, infrastructure as code. That's like your Terraform, Cloud Formation. Uh, there's a lot of other IAC languages, but basically you're defining how your cloud infrastructure is built with code. So you're not in your web UI clicking around to configure settings or deploy a EC2 instance or a VM. You're defining, hey, in code, here's this EC2 VM I want, here's the name of it, here's the tags, here's the OS, and then you're pushing that code, which then deploys your infrastructure for you. So that's directly kind of drops into your GRC engineering pipelines. Are you securing that infrastructure as code build pipeline? Um, OSCAL is another kind of more documentation-ish based, but the way my take on OSCAL, it's a good way to define the relationships between things. Um, so a few different layers, you kind of have you have your assessment layer and your components, capabilities, implemented requirements. So they really you're taking your SSP elements and moving them into a kind of machine readable structure. So, with OSCAL, you have, some of the good layers that I like to, or relationships in OSCAL that I like to think about are like your capabilities. Like you have a core set of capabilities, which are kind of your top level umbrella, like IAM, auditing and logging. You can define any set of capabilities that you want. And those are your top layer, and then you have your components. These could be, hey, Entra, Okta,
Exactly.
MFA. So those are your individual components that will help you achieve a capability. And then each of those components actually implements specific controls and requirements. So that's, instead of defining one massive SSP, you're now taking those different elements, which is what OSCAL does, and defining those system relationships. It also kind of bakes into, or ties into your, just 20x and just RMF in general, because you have a machine readable definition of your system.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of technical terms. I'm going to have to break this down a little bit later, a little bit more. But I appreciate you for breaking those three complex concepts down. Definitely going to need some time to break that down, AJ. So I appreciate you.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So AJ, from what we talked about, it seems like I think I know where you're going on this. But what do you think the future of GRC is going? Like, what do you think it is? So people can prepare. So they won't say, okay, well, we haven't told them. We told them straight up. But what do you think from being in the weeds?
Future GRC is GRC engineering. Like, it's no longer spreadsheets and annual assessments and screenshots. It's generating automated artifacts of your security and compliance. So that's kind of why, hey, as practitioners or people in the GRC or engineering fields, like hey, you need to start getting more of an engineering mindset, getting your hands dirty, like interacting with systems, interacting with APIs, pulling data, things like that. And AI has actually lowered the barrier to entry for that. Using those tools, you can write up a script that you need way faster. Like you don't need to know how to code. You need to understand the concepts, you need to understand the systems. What do you need to come in? What do you need to come out? And you can use AI to help you. So, you can't say, oh, I need to know how to code to be a GRC engineer. You don't necessarily need that. You just need a new mindset, a technical mindset.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people that work at these big companies. They get unlimited credits for these AI systems, and they tell them straight up, like, if you're manually coding, you're stupid. Like that's what they.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
They say you're stupid. I'm telling you what I'm hearing, audience too. They said, like, my friend, I have a friend that works for a big company, and he told me too. He for a lot of the stuff, CCBs, patches. He's creating scripts using Claude Code. He doesn't know how to code, but he's using Claude Code to code.
Yeah. You don't need to. You don't need to know, but you should be able to have a level of critical thinking where you're like, hey, you don't take what AI is outputting for truth. You should, be able to challenge what it's doing, make sure it's using good patterns, good systems. Like, hey, do you don't want like a, janky Claude code script that's written like, even if you don't know how to code, you need to understand that, hey, this needs to be a reliable production ready script, error failures, things like that. You're kind of thinking, like I mentioned, larger systems thinking is what's going to be more important. The basics of code you can now have AI do, but creating those mature production systems and kind of thinking about all the edge cases, thinking about what the business needs are, still are on the human.
Yeah, and that's what I'm learning more and more now for myself. Like, you just got to understand how everything goes in the flow, because like, even for my friend that works for the company, he knows the process, But it's just you got to make sure you can check in and verify. Always verify. What they say in zero trust. What's
Yeah.
going on? Yeah. So AJ, that's some great advice. Going to take that for myself too. We're learning this stuff because you got to. You're pretty much telling you, and if you're not, you're going to be out of a job unless you're owning the company or you're a manager. But you're going to be out of a job. So I'm glad you telling us.
Even if you're owning a company and running a company, now there's more at risk. If you're not up with the times, then you have a whole company that might go down with you.
Nah, and that's going to segue right into my question is you're an entrepreneur. You've been doing this for a while. Actually, I'm going to throw in some new questions in here.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the first question I wanted to ask you was like, when you became an entrepreneur, you started Stratus, right? Did you have a job and you just started funneling things to that company, or how did you start? Like how did you?
So I mean,
When did you?
I mean, I was working up at Fort Meade. Just had
Oh,
the
for me,
opportunity. Yeah, yep,
I'm,
NSA.
I was up there. I was up
Oh,
there.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was there for a long time. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I had that opportunity to just subcontract and do RMF work. And just started Stratus doing that. Just kind of took a leap there. I was like, let's see what happens after this. Like, I can always go back and potentially get a job, but starting something new and trying it, it's might as well take it and see what happens.
When did you know to quit? When did you know when to quit your job? Was it did you pick a certain amount you was going to make, or and how did you?
It was essentially at that point, it was just trading one full-time job for a subcontract full-time job, just under a company. That kind of just was the starting point. So, it wasn't really at that point, it wasn't really what I would say, true entrepreneurship or running a company. It was kind of the start of it with the intention of over time, hey, let's see what other contracts you can get, kind of see what you can turn this into. So yeah, just took time and patience
Patience. Okay,
and a
I
leap
got
of faith. Yeah.
you. In the leap of faith. What were some of the mistakes you made? I know working in the government space and doing contractors, sometimes like doing contracting 1099, even I've dropped the ball on some things because I didn't properly say, okay, I have the skills for this, or I can do this right now, or I didn't have the proper team. What are some mistakes that have you made as a cybersecurity or tech entrepreneur?
Probably all of the above.
I understand.
I think probably the main thing is thinking you have more time than you really do to do things. So I think that's where the focus comes in. What do you do well? What do you want to focus on? And have a good team of other people around you to help support. Whether that's part time, contract or whatever. Start thinking about surrounding yourself with people that are helping you out.
Yeah.
Not just trying to do it by yourself.
And like I say for myself, like I started Tech Woke and RMF Academy. I'm thinking I could do everything myself, and it's like, and you try to train other people, and it's like they're not gonna have you, they're not gonna be you. So it's just you just gotta be patient with that, right?
Yeah, you got to be real patient, and then you got to also think about what are the most high value things that you can work on. What are the most important things for scalability for you as an entrepreneur? Not, hey, I need someone you doing X, Y, and Z. You can train them up on it, but yeah, and kind of understanding that it takes time, and you can't have other people do a lot of things, but then you're focusing yourself on the higher leverage activities.
I got you. Just focus on what you need to take care of, and the lower stuff,
Yeah,
just figure it out. I got you.
yeah.
Um, I have another question. So for me, I'm an introvert. I started off as an introvert. Starting Tech Woke, I was an introvert. I would say I could turn it on and turn it off sometimes. I know you're a technical entrepreneur. I mean, you know about stuff. How did I don't I'm not and I don't know 100%, but did you have to break out your shell when it came to being an entrepreneur?
Yes,
Or
definitely. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah,
so how,
definitely. It's a constant evolution of growth. How do you got to end up talking to people. Yeah, I'm an introvert myself, but Yeah, you have no choice. If you want to grow and scale, you got to learn new skills, people skills, management skills, more operational discipline.
How
It
did you
is
do
what it
that?
is.
Trial by fire?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Now that's the best way to learn. I learned
You
by fire. I
gotta
talk
re-
to so many people like yourself, and it's like sometimes I'd be like, I'm on a call with this guy. I'd be like, so I gotta kind of, just talk, and just,
yeah,
just be there. You're there for the moment. Have you
yeah.
ever dealt? I'm sorry.
I say you read a few books and then actually go do it. Like, that's
Have you ever dealt with imposter syndrome throughout your career in entrepreneurship?
probably every day.
I got you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that is probably the number one thing I think a lot of people deal with in general. Like, just getting away from that and just go do stuff. Like, yeah, don't suffer from imposter syndrome. Like, just go out there, build in public. I know a lot of people in the GRC engineering club, like, hey, they're just posting their progress online. Um, there's whether it's something simple, but yeah, I mean, don't be afraid of, don't succumb to imposter syndrome.
And shout out to AJ Yon. AJ
Yeah,
Yon
yep,
is a good
exactly.
dude, man. Like I met him a while ago, and he's been nothing but great. And I see him posting about GRC Engineering Club. Shout out to Abdi too. And if AJ's watching those people in the club to try to hire some people, just to know that if you're posting, people are watching. That's why I tell people I'm watching.
Yep, I am. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
I've
man,
actually reached out to a lot of the people in the GRC engineering club, so yeah, I like what they're doing.
yeah, shout out to them. I always try to give him some love. He always helps out. So yeah, make sure, hey, keep posting. It's working because if AJ busy man, if he's seeing it, it's something serious. So
Yeah, definitely.
we're rounding out and getting closing out. So AJ, I just got a few extra questions for you. And again, I appreciate your time. So we're gonna go into the latter part. So for the audience, where can they find you? Like in general, where can they find your business? If anybody's watching is trying to get any FedRAMP, CMMC work, make sure you check out Stratus Cyber. So where can they find your company and you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, that's probably the main place you'll find me visible, and then yeah, stratuscyber.com. Yeah, email AJ@stratuscyber. So yeah, we're located in the DMV area, but we're all fully remote.
Yeah, check him out. His company is spelled STRTSUS Cyber. It's on the background, so just make sure you check it out. AJ, is there anything that you would want to say, okay, to the audience to continue their journey? It can be a quote, it could be a comment, like something that can keep them to keep going. Because sometimes you want to give up.
Just stay curious, be patient, and don't doubt yourself.
Yeah, just don't doubt yourself because the minute you give out, like I said, tell the most people, it took me like 2 years of being inconsistent to get into tech and in general. So the minute I just sat there and locked in and made it, that's no matter what I'm gonna get into it. That's when you do good. So just stay consistent because even with me, y'all see me posting all this podcast every week. Y'all have seen me do this almost 365 days a year. I might miss a couple, but I'm consistent. So just be
Yep,
consistent.
exactly. It takes time. Yeah, be consistent and patient,
Okay,
and
so
the results will come after that.
they will come. So AJ, I just want to say thank you for giving me your time on the podcast. And I appreciate you for being on. I learned a lot. There's some things I want to go back and look at for myself. I appreciate the business advice. I appreciate the CMMC FedRAMP information. And thank you for coming on.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So remember, everybody, if you're watching the podcast on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, and make sure you check out rmfacademy.io if you want to learn some of the basics of RMF, if you want to get inside an EMAS simulator, if you want to use those cyber technologies in the beginning, or if you're already working in a space, you just want to get some practice, just make sure you check it out. And remember, everybody, get 1% better every day. Peace out. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.